I'm just going to challenge you, brother. Look into those images. I know you believe men actually landed on the moon in 1969 through 72. I'm going to challenge you on that. That didn't happen. The Orion project alone is telling you that did not happen. The space shuttle program came to an end, and after the space shuttle ended, the new project is Project Orion. Just do a YouTube search on Project Orion and radiation, and you'll see all the videos that they are putting out saying, this is their words, we've got to solve this problem before we could send men through their Van Allen radiation belt. If there is something that definitely, at least in my opinion, exposes the Apollo program as a fraud, it's the Orion project. The Orion project, after they retired the space shuttle, the next project that's on the board right now is called Project Orion. And they're pretty much telling you that Apollo never happened, especially when they put out videos like this talking about the Van Allen radiation belts.
We are headed 3,600 miles above Earth, 15 times higher from the planet than the International Space Station. As we get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation.
What?
As we get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation.
One more time.
An area of dangerous radiation.
Oh. What's wrong with that radiation?
Radiation like this could harm the guidance systems, onboard computers, or other electronics on Orion. Naturally, we have to pass through this danger zone twice, once up and once back.
That doesn't sound good.
Naturally, we have to pass through this danger zone twice, once up and once back. But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation. Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
What? We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space? I thought this problem was solved over 40 years ago when he sent a bunch of people in jumpsuits and tin cans through it there and back a half dozen times. But I forgot. The Apollo guys, they were clueless regarding the radiation belt. That it didn't affect them.
I don't know the distance to the Van Allen radiation belt, and if we did, it wasn't a problem. If we were going to encounter it, then we would have had to build the spacecraft and the spacesuit to not give humans a problem. You don't just build something and hope it works. You study to see what the threats are, the environment is, and then you say, how thick do I have to make the metal on the spacecraft so that going through this kind of radiation or these kind of meteoroids, it won't get hurt. And then we build it that way.
I help manage the Orion Crew and Service Module office. We're responsible for developing the crew capsule, which is where the crew lives and works when they're in space, and the service module, which is what provides the power and the fuel and the consumables then that is plumbed over to the crew module. So right now I focus a lot of my time on the development of the life support system for the Orion Crew module. Space puts us in a different environment. When we're here on Earth, we don't realize every day we're protected by the environment around us. Our bodies that are a certain pressure, we're protected by the natural radiation shield of the Earth. And when we go out into space and we don't have that natural protection, then the engineering and the spacecraft have to provide that protection for us. We don't have the ultimate answer for radiation on Orion. We're still working on that. If we were to build Orion out of the materials we need and the sole job was to protect for the radiation environment, the vehicle would really be too heavy. So we have to balance the weight of the materials that we put on the spacecraft with how much protection it's providing the crew. So we're really looking at it from an operational perspective. If we understand a radiation event has happened, the crew will actually take shelter in the aft bay of the vehicle, which is kind of down in the back end. And we'll use some of the stowage things that are around them in that back end to kind of protect them from the radiation. We have found over the years that water is a really great radiation absorbing material. So we could do things like water that's already there in the water bags for drinking and things like that. That water could be used to shield them. As well as we've had some concepts like a water-filled vest that they could put on should they know there's an event and need to be protected.
We don't have a clue when it comes to like how to protect them from like radiation. So we're gonna just like put them up there in like water suits. Yeah, we like water suits, and like if we put water all around them, so the radiation could go like into the water, and then they could drink it, and it could be like a Fantastic Four. Everybody they'll come back and be mutants when they get back. But we just got some ideas, Yeah. But don't worry about it. Yeah, I know there are refugees everywhere, and like people are starving and stuff, and like we have homeless all over the place. But if we spend like a few $1 trillion, I think we should be able to figure out how to make water suits for the astronauts in space, and then maybe it'll work out like it did for the guys in Apollo.
The belts are 1,000 miles to 25,000 miles above the Earth.
We went right out through them.
No effects on your cells?
Didn't even know it. I don't think anybody, well, maybe somebody said you went through the radiation belt, but we didn't feel it inside, and we didn't get any, added radiation.
Yeah, if you pretend that it's not really there, then you can just go right through it.
So apparently you had this magic window of time, because now Orion's still very much concerned about it. We've got to solve this challenge before we can put people through it. And yet even before Mercury and Gemini, they were very concerned about it and trying to figure out how to solve the problem, as evidenced in this Smithsonian.com article. News of the hot band of peril immediately cast doubt on whether Laika, the Russian dog, would have been able to survive for a week in space aboard Sputnik 2, as the Soviets claimed in November of 1957. The Soviets said that after 6 days, the dog's oxygen ran out and he was euthanized with poisoned food. It was later learned that Laika, the first live animal to be launched into space, died just hours after the launch from overheating and stress, when a malfunction in the capsule caused the temperature to rise. What Van Allen had discovered were the bands of high-energy particles that were held in place by strong magnetic fields and soon known as the Van Allen belts. A year later, he appeared on the cover of Time magazine as he opened an entirely new field of research, magnetospheric physics, and catapulted the United States into the race to space with the Soviet Union. On the same day Van Allen held his press conference in May 1958, he agreed to cooperate with the United States military on a top-secret project. The plan? To send atomic bombs into space in an attempt to blow up the Van Allen belts, or to at least disrupt them with a massive blast of nuclear energy. Okay, guys, read up on this stuff. All right, this is Smithsonian.com. Check that out. There's another good article on NPR. You can look up a very scary light show, exploding H-bombs in space. When they talk about this, and they got a video here showing footage of Operation Fishbowl, which is a very interesting title for after they find something in Antarctica, which the flat earthers would say is the outer rim of the circle of the Earth, and everybody pulls out. All of a sudden NASA's created, and right after that they start shooting up rockets into space with nuclear warheads on them, and this is what you start seeing with Operation Fishbowl. Operation Fishbowl. Really? I mean, it looks like they found something in Antarctica and they said, oh, what is this? Wonder how high it is. How high does this thing go? And they start blowing off nuclear bombs in the atmosphere. Now, were they doing that because they were testing the firmament? Were they trying to blast through the firmament? Or is it about the Van Allen belt with the radiation? Is that the problem? I don't know. This article goes on to describe, again, the Van Allen energy belts and what they came to understand about them, and discover it, then blow it up. The plan was to send rockets hundreds of miles up higher than the Earth's atmosphere and then detonate nuclear weapons to see, A, if a bomb's radiation would make it harder to see what was up there, like incoming Russian missiles, B, if an explosion would do any damage to objects nearby, C, if the Van Allen belts would move a blast down the bands to an earthly target, Moscow, for example. And most peculiar, D, if a man-made explosion might alter the natural shape of the belts. The scientific basis for these proposals is not clear. Fleming is trying to figure out if Van Allen had any theoretical reason to suppose the military could use the Van Allen belts to attack a hostile nation. He supposes that at the height of the Cold War, the most pressing argument for a military experiment was, if we don't do it, the Russians will. And indeed, the Russians did test atomic bombs and hydrogen bombs in space. No big surprise, they were also down there in Antarctica prior. And oh, by the way, while we supposedly got ahead of them and started to beat them in the alleged space race, you know, we're led to believe they just, we lost and they gave up. No, they sent like something like 40 missions down to Antarctica while we were playing around with the so-called Apollo space program. So something's going on here, and these psychopaths, you know, they look up there, they see something, oh, that looks cool, let's blow it up. Oh, we don't really think it's important. Even though they have admitted that they know it's there for our protection? Why do we put our fate into the hands of monkey men? These people think they came from monkeys, for crying out loud. And they hold within their grasp technology that could make life for us here on Earth very bad when they do things like they're attempting to do at CERN, to rip holes in the fabric of time and space and recreate what they think is the Big Bang, opening up portals, interdimensional, realms. And now keep in mind, these monkey men think that the whole universe got here when a microscopic dot exploded. So what are they doing? They're slamming microscopic dots together, trying to recreate the Big Bang. I don't really think it takes a very high IQ to think that through. Wait a minute. You think we got here from a microscopic dot exploding, and now you're slamming microscopic dots together, trying to explode them and recreate the Big Bang. Hello? Guys, maybe there's a reason why they put the Hindu god Shiva, the god of destruction, dancing in a portal outside their front freaking door. Bunch of lunatics. And meanwhile, elsewhere, a bunch of other lunatic psychopaths are thinking they can poke holes or blow up the Van Allen belt, the very thing that's up there, put there for our protection. People out there thinking I'm crazy. Anyway, let's go back to the original ibtimes.com article regarding the invisible plasma shield. The last quote here says, it's like looking at the phenomenon with new eyes, with a new set of instrumentation, which give us the detail to say, yes, there is this hard, fast boundary, Foster said. Have they found the firmament? I don't know. I mean, it's not exactly the description of the firmament, but if it's not the firmament, it may be one of the heavens and the layers below it. But whatever the case may be, the choice of words being used, as I've stressed here in bold above, seems more than interesting to me. A hard, fast boundary that is an impenetrable barrier out there about 7,200 miles up? Note also the repeated statements about how harsh space is and in and beyond the Van Allen belts. And yet we were told NASA sent a bunch of guys in jumpsuits and a tin can through it 12 times round trip on at least a half dozen alleged missions to the moon. Job 37:18 says, hast thou with him spread out the sky, which is strong as a molten looking glass? Amos 9:6 in the New American Standard Bible says, the one who builds his upper chambers in the heavens and has founded his vaulted dome over the earth. He who calls for the waters of the sea and pours them out on the face of the earth, the Lord is his name. There may yet be a legitimate reason people are going back to the scriptures in order to see and test/prove, 1 Thessalonians 5:21, the truth for themselves. So they're telling us today in the 21st century that they still haven't solved the radiation problem for Project Orion, which effectively nullifies everything we were told about Project Apollo. And the more you look into Project Apollo, the more you eventually have to say something is extremely suspicious about it. And fool me once, right? You've heard the thing, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. Well, continue to believe pathological liars and you're an idiot. If these guys are lying and we can prove that they are lying, then why should we trust them as our source for truth over and above the scriptures that you, Brother Hovind, taught us that we can take literally? So I'm just going to say, hey, I put the scriptures out there. I know you know them just as well as I do, probably even better. But If you go back there and read those scriptures, you are going to be forced to acknowledge, just as the scholars from Logos Bible Software, that we are on a circular, inscribed circular, still flat earth set on pillars with edges and corners under a dome within which the sun, moon, and stars were placed on day 4. I'm sorry, Brother Hovind, but I used to teach the same thing that you taught, largely because you taught it, and I believed you. You cannot put the sun, moon, and stars in the ice canopy. Genesis says the sun, moon, and stars were placed in the firmament, the canopy. That's the dome. We're under a dome. So I love the guy. I don't know what it would take. Somebody like me is probably never going to convince him. He's probably just going to write me off as a conspiracy tinfoil hat wearing nut job, like many others have. The thing that convinced me that that's what the text says was just reading it and not putting my preconceived notions on it that I got from Monkey Man Science textbooks that Brother Hovind told me that I shouldn't believe in the first place. So, that's a long answer, but that would be basically what I would say in that regard.
Do you guys know about Apollo 11, where they landed on the moon? What part of the moon? Do you know, can you identify this region of the moon?
Dutch Eden.
What's that?
Dutch Eden.
Sea of Tranquility is where Apollo 11 was, right? The problem is that's not the Sea of Tranquility, nor is it the moon. That's Arizona, where they blew up portions of the desert of Arizona to look just like the region of the moon that we were supposedly going to. Now, looking at that picture, if I said, hey, this is the area of the moon where the Apollo 11 was to land, most of us wouldn't think anything of it. Most of us would go, okay, cool. Not even realizing you're looking at a black and white photograph of Arizona that was blown up. If you don't believe me, you can go on Google Earth today and still see what's left of it after 50 years. Okay? Go to that location right there. Got Buzz Aldrin standing there in one of the test sites. See the mountain range behind him? Well, what do you know? It's on the moon, too. There he is in the corner, hopping along, like a bunny rabbit at half-speed film. This is a pretty telling picture, before and after. Just do a Google or YouTube search for the Apollo 11 press conference and watch the first 20 to 30 minutes of it. I know how I would be if I just got back from the moon. I'd still be floating, man. I was on the moon, man! I'd have been jazzed out of my mind for the rest of my life. These guys look like their dogs just got shot. And they told that their parents aren't really their parents. They're adopted stepchildren. I mean, seriously, Santa Claus isn't real. I mean, their whole life is shattered. I mean, you look at these guys. They look like, to me, they look like good, honest, patriotic men that have been forced to lie. That's what it looks like to me. You can watch it for yourself.
Astronauts Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, Edwin Aldrin. Neil?
It was our pleasure to have participated in one great adventure. It's an adventure that took place not just in the month of July, but rather one that took place in the last decade. We all here and the people listening in today had the opportunity to share that adventure over its developing and unfolding in the past months and years. It's our privilege today to share with you some of the details of that final month of July that was certainly the highlight for the three of us of that decade. We're going to divert a little bit from the format of past press conferences and talk about the things that interested us most, in particular the things that occurred on and about the moon. We will use a number of films and slides which most of you have already seen, and with the intent of pointing out some of the things that we observed on the spot, which may not be obvious to those of you who are looking at them here from the surface of Earth. The flight, as you know, started promptly. And I think that was characteristic of all the events of the flight. The Saturn gave us one magnificent ride, both into Earth orbit and on a trajectory to the moon. Our memory of that actually differs little from the reports that you have all heard from those previous Saturn V flights, and the previous flights served us well in preparation for this flight in the boost as well as the subsequent phases. We would like to skip directly to the translunar coast phase and remind ourselves of the long chain of events that actually permitted a landing.
So then I ask you, if we can prove, and I think the evidence is abundant, when you look at websites like Alice.com, you look at the documentaries like A Funny Thing Happened to the Moon, On the Way to the Moon, and many others that have been done, if we can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, and I think there's more than enough evidence to do so, that Apollo never happened the way we were told that it did, then neither did this. This is the picture we've all seen in our textbooks. This is from Apollo 17. I've got a YouTube video where I show another picture taken from Apollo 17 where the astronaut is like kind of right in the foreground and over his shoulder is the Earth. And I did this live on the air on Google Hangout. I took the audience, I said, look, we're going to the NASA website, we're going to Apollo 17, we're on the Apollo 17 page, look at this picture, scientists on the moon, clicked on that picture, download it, bring it into Photoshop, adjust the levels, the contrast levels, and what do you know? A rectangular box shows up around the Earth. What's a rectangular box doing around the Earth? By the same mission that gave us this picture, that was in every one of our textbooks growing up. This was the only picture we saw for decades until they started putting out the Blue Marble series, and none of them looked the same. Which one, NASA? Which one's our Earth? Continents are shifting and growing and shrinking in size. Everything, colors, everything looks different. My favorite one is the one from 2002. That's the one if you bought an iPad or an iPhone, it's the default background. In fact, no, I don't have my iPad with me, but if I turn my iPad on, it's still there. I still have the default background. That's the Blue Marble from 2002. Well, I brought that one into Photoshop and did an analysis on it because I saw some other people doing it, and I wanted to check it for myself. And I kept seeing where the Photoshop clone tool was replicating clouds. These are just a few of the highlighted areas where that's the case. Wait a minute, if we're taking pictures of the Earth, why the heck do you have to use Photoshop to replicate clouds? And why is the majority of the modifications in the so-called southern hemisphere? This is what really got me going. You know, when I went down this trail, I started looking at the Blue Marbles and looking at pictures allegedly shot of our Earth from space and seeing actual footage of Apollo 11 faking the Earth in the window because they had a circular window inside the capsule, and they're on the other end of the capsule. They had all the lights out, and they're angling the camera in such a way that the curvature of the window is giving the illusion of a spherical Earth that they were supposedly shooting through the window to see.
Unfortunately, we only have one window that has a view of the Earth, and it's filled up with the TV camera, so your view now is probably better than ours is. Roger, we copy. 11, Houston, if you could comply, we'd like to see some smiling faces up there. If you could give us some interior views, I'm sure everybody'd like to see you. Over. Okay, we'll reconfigure the TV for that. Roger. Apollo 11, Houston, appears to us that we're seeing a view from outside, plus a little of the inside. It appears you've taken the camera away from the left window. Now, over.
That's correct. We're moving it back and reconfiguring for interior lighting.
Roger. We can still see the Earth through the left window, and it appears that we can see a floodlight off to the left, either that or some sun shafting through the hatch window. It's a floodlight. Now we're coming in. Can't quite make out who that hatch. That's Big Mike Collins there.
Well, you got a little bit of... Yeah, hello there, sports fans. You got a little bit of me, plus Neil's in the center couch, and Buzz is doing the camera work this time.
So I started seeing all that stuff, and I'm in, I was doing a conference in San Diego, and I was flying back from San Diego, and we're flying over New Mexico, over the desert, and I'm just taking pictures of the desert with my iPhone. And I was leaning back like this and took a picture, and you know, the iPhone will focus, you know, you can tell it where to focus by tapping on it, you know. It had automatically focused on what I was looking at down below the airplane, but what was in the foreground was the inside curvature of my window, which the iris had closed down such that it was so, because the outside was so bright, that it was a dark curved effect on the left side of my photograph. And when I clicked it to look at it, I'm like, wait a minute. So I start taking all kinds of pictures like this, and I'm leaning back doing this, and Sheila's sitting next to me, my wife. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm taking pictures of Mars. Leave me alone. Hang on. Taking pictures. And if you go to my website, I should have posted them here. I didn't post them here. If I showed you the pictures that I took and told you these were recent surveyor pictures of Mars, you would all believe it. I would have believed it. But it's New Mexico from 37,000 feet on my Spirit Airline flight, with the curved window pretending to be the curvature of the Earth.
If you go to my Testing the Globe website, testingglobe.com, and go to Easy Globalist Arguments to Refute, and if you scroll down on that page, you'll see some pictures that I had taken. This right here was taken out of my Spirit Airlines flight on the way back from San Diego to Dallas at about 37,000 feet. I was taking pictures out the window, and just the way that the camera adjusted itself, I was using my iPhone. So it focused on the background image back here. It made that nice and bright, and the foreground was out of focus and dark. Well, I mean, you don't have to do a whole lot to that image to make it look like something that it's not. You know, add a red filter to it, put a little bit of a glow around it, throw a space probe or a satellite or an ISS over it if you wanted to, and what do you know? You got something that the average person could easily be deceived by. This is New Mexico at 37,000 feet. Or it's Mars with a space probe in front of it. I'm just saying it's really easy to, as Ben Kenobi said, your eyes can deceive you. Don't trust them. And with modern technology today, it's even easier. And if you've got a great set like Devon Island to use to pretend that it's Mars that very few people will ever get to, who's going to go up there? I mean, it's really far north and really cold and very remote. So, you know, what are the chances that Joe Blow is going to be up there? Now, why would NASA put that stuff out in plain sight? Well, I mean, again, it could be it's just a training site and they have no problem telling people that. Could also be Amos 3:7. God says he himself, he doesn't do anything except that he tells his servants, the prophets, first what he's going to do. So if that's a law that even God himself has bound himself by, then perhaps that's the reason why, we talk a lot about the Illuminati always putting things out in plain sight. It's hidden in plain sight, but it's there. It's there for everybody to see. Maybe they have to do the same thing too. I don't know. You want to believe the best. You want to think, okay, it's just a training facility and it's all good. It's all above board. But then again, the possibility and even plausibility that it could be used for deceptive purposes is there as well. So just something to consider.
Then this is the most recent one, came out from NASA July 20th, 2015. And the president tweeted this picture. Oh, wow, look at this. Yay. Well, if you take that same picture and flip it upside down, the cloud formation spells sex. Interesting.
You get this blue marble, and you look at it at first, it's an improvement over some of the other blue marbles. But then somebody brilliant out there decided, hey, I'm going to flip this thing upside down. And as soon as they did, the clouds are spelling sex.
Yep.
And you're like, come on. Oh,
yep. And you know what I also loved about that was, and Jonathan and I have talked about before, was that they were, when they put out the blue marble shot, they made a point of saying, oh yeah, by the way, this is the first blue marble shot we've done in 43 years. And
all the other ones.
Yeah, which helped the flat Earth cause, because everybody, on that side was saying, there are no pictures of the Earth from space. There's only one that they've ever said, and people are going, no, that's not true. And then the White House and Neil deGrasse Tyson comments on it, said, oh yeah, this is the second shot from space in 43 years. I was going, and this doesn't bother anybody?
Yes. So wait. Do you think they're helping the cause or the movement so that they can get out from under their lies? Do you think, they're giving little clues
That is, go ahead.
Well, because they're still saying this is the real deal, they're saying that this is the ball Earth, and I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson was saying, now with this new satellite or whatever, we're going to be getting pictures every month and new stuff. So their plan is to constantly put it in your face.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I will say this, and I think the movement, and especially with help from guys like you, I don't think that blue marble shot would have come out if this thing wasn't getting.
I agree.
This traction. It was I was humbled when I saw that. Because that blue marble thing was passed around inside our circles really, really fast, and I was going, wow. That's something, you're actually going to come out and, put the shot out because we've been saying that there's no shot.
Well, and then right after that is the moon crossing in front of the Earth. It was 2 weeks after that, I think that one came out. So it's almost like they're really scrambling because there's a guy out there called Conscious Truth on YouTube.
Okay.
He's got a series, NASA Fake Images of Earth Smoking Gun, Parts 1 through 5. Mm-hmm. Where he's going on the NASA website, going through their image catalog, the NSS-DC image catalog of the Earth, going through each of the Apollo missions and clicking on them, bringing them into Photoshop, adjusting the levels and showing the funky masks that are around them. He's just hammering them. And I did a few myself. I did the same thing with Apollo 17, Scientists on the Moon. I did that on 2 different Google Hangout shows on video, with 2 different people interviewing me. We did it live on the air. I took people to the site, downloaded it live, put it in Photoshop, adjusted the levels, showed them the square box around the Earth.
Right. I saw the one you did with Josh Peck.
Yeah, with Josh.
Yeah, where you had the square box around the Earth that was coincidentally right underneath that pointed end of the flag. Yeah. And it was like 3 days later, I think, somebody sent me a thing on Facebook saying, go look at the same webpage that I was just on, and it said it was updated. That page was updated like 2 days, 3 days after I did that show. Really? And it's gone now?
It was updated, and I downloaded the picture again and tried it again, and I got a totally different effect. Nice. It still had pixelation around it, but they must have put a higher resolution picture and cleaned it up, because you could actually, when you adjusted the levels the same way that I did in the prior one, you could actually see stars, which you couldn't see in any of the other ones. So what it appeared is, these guys are out there doing this, I'm doing this, other people are doing it. exposing these pictures, and somebody over there at NASA must have they just hired a guy to go kind of clean up all the all the old stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, now let's get some new stuff out. Let's throw out Pluto.
Yeah, Pluto. I was just gonna say, yeah, let's throw the Pluto thing out there.
Pluto out of.
What's the motivation? Why would they lie to us? Well, first, I think, to get people to doubt Yahuwah's word by destroying the very foundation of our Bible, Genesis, specifically the creation account. 2, set up a new paradigm where God is out and science is in. Evolution removes Yahuwah from the equation. When evolution finally runs its course and becomes utterly bankrupt, introduce the idea of intelligent design, but deny the true designer his due credit and place it rather on ancient aliens. 4, promote the ancient alien theme as much as possible in all forms of media by perpetuating the concept of Earth as a tiny blue marble orbiting an average sun in an average galaxy among trillions of other galaxies in an ever-expanding universe. With so much potential for life to exist in such a vast universe, the idea of alien scientists being our creators seems a lot more plausible over time and heavy indoctrination. And 5, the stage is set for our alien creators to return and bestow upon us their miracles, signs, and wonders in order to convince us all the more that all religions are false. We then put our trust in them. Finally, when Christ does return, we are all convinced that he is the enemy, and our united world gathers together to make war with him. In my mind, those are some reasonable reasons to have motivation to create a deception. But then I got a little bit deeper into this.